Today we will create a series of mini abstract all in once. Before to start, I just want to mention that this is the sketchbook I'm using, which is a Canson XL mixed media. Now let's get started. I will tell you the supplies that I use as we go along. Here I'm using a mixed media paper that is an A4 size, and I separated the paper into grids, which I didn't really measure. I just went by eye, just based on the dimension that I want them to have. As you see, I have a lot of supplies on my table, and that's how I like to work. I never know what I end up using, so I like to have everything at hand, so I'm inspired and ready to grab. I do start my base with watercolor. I have a mixed palette for watercolor, but in this case I'm using mainly the pearless watercolor sheet because they are quite vibrant and I wanted to have vibrancy on my paper. But I will also use a couple of Rosa Gallery watercolor, especially this dark indigo here that I truly love. Then for the rest is mainly the pearless watercolor that also I haven't used in a while, so it's nice to use the supply you have time to time. I'm spreading the color a little bit here and there. Try not to have too much control over where the color is going and how the grid will actually turn up. Once I finish with my watercolor, I will let it dry, and then I decide to use my new supply, my Derwent XL block graphite. I love them, so I'm using a couple of different color to create different marks around without too much thinking. Just try to create different shape without focusing on how the single artwork will look in the end. I was focusing just on mark making and create something that inspired me. Here I'm using a beautiful light blue. This is a Sennelier oil pastel. I don't have many of those, but I do love the way they spread on the paper. The white as well is from Sennelier oil pastel and is beautiful the way they lie down, perfect for mark making. Recently I also got some few extra neocolor one. I had just a few for the longest time, and I recently added a few more to my collection, and I decided to play a bit more with them because of course when you have something new you just want to play with them more and more. And I'm using this gold color and this salmon color to create some mark around, some square, some line, some arrows, and I'm just having fun and thinking what can I do next and where can I place it. And yeah, just moving back and forth with the between the grids without try not to look to the general picture but focus just on the mark making. I am using now my very well loved willow charcoal. I love to use this little stick. It's so intense in its mark making. I love the kind of mark that you can create and the freedom and the lightness that you feel while using it. Here I'm using some watercolor pencil from Derwent, and I'm not using it as watercolor pencil, just as watercolor to create some spiral around. I love creating spiral. I'm doing that almost all the time. And then recently I got a book 20 way to draw everything. I made a video about it and I link that below. And I got inspired of how sort of centerpiece I could come out for this one. And also was curious to see how one unified creation will actually look once you split the paper in multiple pieces, like in this case. So I was very excited and curious, and I'm using first a black marker, acrylic marker. Now I'm using a Posca white acrylic marker. This is just a very thin nib of 0.7, and I'm creating some fine line that just created the extra shyness. But then I decided that I want more shyness in my life, so I will move to use some gold as well in just a little bit.